"You have your mother's eyes," the woman said. "Thanks," I replied. "I'm pretty sure one day she'll want them back." Submitted by Colin Austed. Hi, I'm Blair Bathory, and this is the Something Scary podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Whether this is your first time or you are one of the brave souls who join us every week. Sometimes the trip you plan isn't the one you take. We've all had vacations that turn into nightmares, and you end up in a hostel with shadows that don't belong and voices that lure you into darkness. So before you pack your bags and check in for a dream vacation, remember, some places don't want you there. First, not all guests leave, followed by the Wendigo waits. Finally, in our last story, haunted by unseen eyes. Before we get to our stories, have you bought yourself a new Something Scary t-shirt? I wore it last week on the podcast, and we'd love to see you wearing yours, so send us a photo of yourself and we might post it to our social media. Go to SomethingScary.com and order some of our new merch. We've got tons of other items that are perfect for the beach, the campfire, or wherever you're headed. That's SomethingScary.com, and send me a photo. I'd love to see it. So, want to hear something scary? Hostels and hauntings. Sometimes, it's not the places we visit that haunt us. It's what waits there for us to come back. Like in this story inspired by ASM 2022. We were just a bunch of broke college guys looking for a cheap escape. Portugal sounded perfect. Warm beaches, good beer, and a hostel near the water that was just this side of sketchy. The place was called Casa Branca, a peeling white building on the edge of a cliff, facing the sea. Online, it looked rustic. In person, it looked abandoned. But we didn't care. It was the five of us, me, Dev, Ramesh, Ferhan, and Amit. I'm Nico, by the way. Not that it matters. The caretaker, an old man with gray teeth and a permanent scowl, handed us the room key without a word and disappeared. There appeared to be no other guests. The room was huge but weirdly arranged. There were 5 metal cots all lined up along one wall, each one with a mattress as thin as cardboard. And the room had the smell of damp wood and moldy linens. We'd heard rumors before we've even got there. Ramesh said he read something online, maybe Reddit, about a student who died at the hostel back in the 90s, fell or jumped from the top floor. No one agreed on the details, except one thing, the name, Amit. "You're making that up," our Amit said, rolling his eyes. "I've never even been to Portugal before, bro." Still, the coincidence was creepy. The locals didn't help either. When we walked into the tiny cafe down the hill, the old woman behind the counter looked up when we mentioned where we were staying. Her eyes narrowed. "No one stays there anymore," she muttered, before turning back. We shrugged it off and spent our days on the beach, drinking too much, getting sunburned, and stumbling back to the hostel after midnight. Except for Amit. Most nights he stayed in, buried in some engineering textbook like he couldn't relax even on vacation. One night, I came back alone around 2 a.m. The others had gone to some bar. I tapped out early. I was beat and my shoes were full of sand. When I got to the room, the lights were still on. Amit sat upright on his cot, back to the wall, highlighter in one hand, textbook in the other. The light bulb above him flickered, casting weird shadows across his face, like it didn't know what shape it was supposed to be. I groaned. "Dude, can you turn that off?" I muttered, kicking off my shoes. He didn't say anything, just nodded and reached toward the wall, turning off the light. I turned around to peel off my gross t-shirt when something made me freeze. The light went out just as I was turning, but in that flash of darkness, I saw it. A shadow stretching across the room, long, black, unnatural. I only saw it for a second, but it came from his bed. The outline of an arm, thin, too long, stretched through the air, skimming just above the mattresses. It moved across the room, then ending at the switch. That's when it hit me. The switch was by my bed. And Amit was all the way at the end of the room. I flopped the light back on so fast I nearly fell off the mattress. But Amit's bed was empty. His book was closed. The pillow was untouched, like no one had been there all night. My chest tightened. I crossed the room and checked the bathroom, the hallway. Nothing. The caretaker's door was shut tight downstairs. Back in the room, I stood in the middle, the silence loud in my ears. My hand hovered over the switch again. I turned the lights off, this time while watching the walls. Nothing, no shadow, no movement. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the empty cot across the room until morning broke. When the others returned, I told them what I saw. They all looked at me like I'd gone nuts. "Dude, Amit left with us last night," Romesh said slowly. "He said he'd had enough studying. He came to meet us at the bar." "No, he didn't. I saw him here." Farhan frowned. "You sure?" "I talked to him." That's when Dev pulled out his phone. "He's not in any of our pics from last night." He wasn't. Every shot had the four of them, laughing, dancing, drinking. No Amit. "Did he come back with you?" I asked. Everyone shrugged. We searched the whole hostel, every room, every locked door. No sign of him. His bag was gone, his clothes, his shoes, like he'd never been there. We went to the police and filed a report, then called his parents. The caretaker didn't seem surprised. He just shrugged. "Some boys come and go. Some leave in the night," he said. Ramesh asked about the old story, about the students who died. The caretaker's eyes flicked up. "That boy, Amit?" "He was the quiet type, always studying." My stomach flicked. "What happened to him?" "He fell from the top floor, or jumped. I don't know. His light was still on when they found him." We checked out that day, but I couldn't shake it. Back at college, I'd wake up sweating, thinking I saw something move above me, a shadow that reached too far. Weeks later, we got a call. The police found a body washed up 3 towns over. Male, no ID, no passport. They asked for dental records. It was Amit. His parents flew to identify the remains, but there were things they couldn't explain. Fractures didn't match a fall, lungs filled with seawater, but no sign he'd drowned. His phone and wallet were never recovered. We went back to the cafe, hoping someone could tell us more. This time, the old woman didn't turn away. When we told her what happened, she nodded slowly and said one word: "Muerto." Dead. She told us the legend of Casa Branca, how every few years a traveler disappears. Always a young man, always after dark. They say the sea below the cliff takes what the house chooses, but it doesn't just take it. It copies. Something stays behind, something hollow, hungry, wearing their face. Ramesh couldn't handle it. He dropped out the next semester. Dev drinks more now. Says he doesn't believe any of it, but he sleeps with the lights on. Farhan won't talk about Amit at all. Pretends he never existed. As for me, I still dream about that night, the moment the light flicked off. The stretch of that too long arm, the silence. Sometimes I'll wake up thinking I hear him, Amit, just outside the room, whispering my name. But I don't open the door, not anymore, because now I believe the house didn't just copy him. I think it used him to get out, and I don't know if it's done yet. Have you ever stayed somewhere that felt like the walls were watching you? Do you believe a spirit can return to the place where they died? Or worse, pretend to still be alive? thank you so much for sending me some emails and letters. I love talking to you guys directly. I will tell you one of my stories that I think might have been demonic. I went to a paranormal investigation with a group of ladies about 3 years ago, and we went to the really famous Blair house, which is known for demonic activity. And what was really creepy was each woman, all the paranormal investigators, had an experience during the 2 nights we were staying there where they mentally broke down. They all had a mental breakdown or some emotional breakdown. Everyone was crying. Of course, I was filming the documentary for this event, but it was really terrifying because nobody knew why their emotions were so high. After the fact, I interviewed each girl individually, and they all agreed that they felt it was something demonic that had taken a hold of them at one point throughout the night. I never released that footage because a few of them asked me not to, but it was really terrifying, and it really made me question my own personal opinions about demons. As always, I really appreciate y'all, and I'll see you soon. Sweet screams. When the voices you trust turn against you, running away isn't an option, like in this story inspired by Spencer. Many people fear closed, tight spaces. But sometimes open spaces are far more terrifying. When I was 8, my parents invited my grandmother to stay with us. She was old and needed care. I loved her. She told me stories about trickster spirits and childhood memories. Being Native American, she knew the folklore of our ancestors. Of all her tales, one stuck with me most, the Wendigo. She said that because we lived in rural Canada, we had to be extra cautious in the forests, especially alone. Wendigos could mimic the voices of our loved ones, luring you into their trap, toying with their prey before finally eating them. I never believed these stories, but I loved spending time with Grandma. Fast forward to now. The winter was brutally cold. The town's festival had just ended and the visitors had gone. I stepped outside our family bakery, bundled up, the scent of fresh cinnamon buns in the air as we stalked after the busy days. After cleaning the store, I admired our spotless work. Our family planned a short vacation to a cabin once the festival season ended. Dad went to the gas station for snacks and gas. Then we all packed in the car for the 13-hour drive. Upon arrival, we threw our bags down and explored the surprisingly large house. Mom and Dad were thrilled. It was bigger than advertised. We settled in, hunting for a TV remote to watch a movie. Exhausted, I went to bed early, dreaming of the fun plan for tomorrow. But even before sleep took me, I noticed something strange. My reflection in the hallway mirror seemed distorted. It flickered for a second, the eyes darker, hollower, before returning to normal. I shrugged it off as tiredness. I woke later, hungry beyond reason, and I headed to the kitchen. A post-it on the fridge read, "We went sledding, but we'll be back soon." Strange, they didn't wake me. It was already 10 a.m. I must have been asleep for hours. The hunger didn't ease. Oddly, food didn't satisfy me like it used to. Each bite felt bland, as if my body craved something else. I grabbed a bite and sat on the couch, turning on the TV to pass time. Hours slipped by. Snow began to fall lightly outside. Suddenly, my phone alarm blared. A blizzard warning. Strange, I could see miles of forest beyond the cabin, and the snow was barely settling. Worried, I thought maybe my family had gone somewhere to eat and were stuck due to the storm. I stared out the window, trying to make sense of it. As night fell, distant wolf howls echoed. Their calls were comforting, like nature's lullaby. But something was wrong. The howling stopped abruptly, and a dead silence settled. The forest wasn't just quiet, it was holding its breath. Sleep pulled me under. Then, a snapping sound jolted me awake. I was still on the couch, TV flickering. I searched for the source, but the house was quiet. The forest outside was eerily silent, unnaturally so. Like something was watching. Suddenly, a knock on the door. I heard Mom calling my name. I froze. She never just came without checking in first. Her phone battery might have died, but she's too prepared for that. Something felt wrong. I stepped back, shutting off the TV to hide my presence. My heart pounded hard, and a sudden chill ran down my spine, though the room was warm. To distract myself, I pulled up the Airbnb's security camera feed online. The internet crawled, but after 5 agonizing minutes, I scanned every camera. No sign of anyone, no footprints in the snow, nothing. I closed the blinds in the living room and retreated to my bedroom, which had only one window. I shut the blinds tight and lay down. As I tried to sleep, the voice came again, my dad calling my name outside the window. Panic surged through me. The voice grew frantic, desperate. The knocking began, soft at first, then pounding. I trembled under the covers, heart racing, the air thick with a rotten stench that made my stomach turn. Suddenly, silence. I steadied my breath and rose, hungry despite the fear. I crept down the hall to the kitchen and froze. The blinds I had closed were wide open. The front and back doors were still shut. How had the blinds moved? Before I could think, the voice whispered my name.
Samuel, we're freezing and hungry. Please unlock the door.
I risked a glance. Long, jagged nails tapped on the window, scraping the glass with a high-pitched squeal. I looked away, too terrified to meet its eyes. I stood frozen for what felt like hours, convinced stillness was the only defense. Summoning courage, I peeped again. There it was, a towering, gaunt figure 7 feet tall, skin rotting and stretched tight over bones. A deer skull crowned its head, its grin wide and unnatural. It smiled at me. The creature stopped mimicking voices, letting out a strange, maniacal laugh as it banged on the windows, eager to claim its prey. I ran, searching the house for a weapon. Grandma's words echoed, "Wendigo's fear silver." I grabbed a kitchen knife as it continued pounding, then opened the window and stabbed blindly. The creature recoiled, howling, blood staining the snow, a dark, deep red. I locked the window, trembling, and texted my family. Snowdrifts 6 feet deep had blocked the road. They'd be back soon. When they arrived, their eyes didn't meet mine. They spoke quietly, urgently, pleading, almost mournful. "Samuel, you have to come with us. You're not safe here." I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat, ragged, unnatural. I caught my reflection in the window and froze. Hollow eyes stared back, skin stretched tight and pale, and from my skull, antlers began to sprout. I was no longer the boy who came to this cabin. I was the forest curse, the Wendigo my grandmother had warned me about. And the family that once loved me had fled, leaving me to hunger forever. Have you ever felt so hungry or desperate you weren't sure what was real anymore? What's more terrifying, the things you can see or the ones you can't? And here's one email from someone who called herself Ellie. I'd rather not tell you my name, but you can call me Ellie. I'm from Germany, and I would love for you to share my story on your podcast. I'm a huge fan. I listen to every single episode, and one of my biggest wishes is to tell this story. It happened a couple of years ago. I was home alone after my mom and brother had left the house. I was kind of bored, and after a while, I decided I wanted to do something fun. At the time, I was really into ritual stuff and summoning demons. I know. So of course, I looked up a ritual I could try. After a little searching, I found one that seemed pretty easy. All I needed was salt, some chalk, candles, and a little bit of my blood. I drew a pentagram with chalk, made a salt circle around it, and carefully checked to make sure there were no gaps. I placed the candles on each point of the pentagram and one in the center. Honestly, I didn't even believe anything would happen. Still, I cut my palm and dropped some blood in the middle of the pentagram. Then added some chocolate as an offering. I closed the curtains, locked my door, shut off the lights, and lit the candles. After bandaging my hand, I double-checked everything and made sure I was outside the salt circle. I wanted to keep whatever might come inside out. Then came the incantation. I had to chant, "O dark ones, come here to me. O dark ones, go play with me. I do offer you this chocolate and some blood. If you only would show me your memory." I repeated it 7 times. That's when it happened. A chill ran down my spine and suddenly all the candles blew out. I stood up, about to turn on the light when I saw them. From the other side of the room, a pair of red eyes stared straight at me. I thought I was just imagining things and I was safe because I hadn't stepped inside the salt circle until I moved. While trying to reach the light, I accidentally broke the circle. I was unprotected. Thank God I had saged the room beforehand, or I honestly think I'd be in serious danger right now. Ever since that night, weird things have been happening. My lights flicker randomly, my window opens by itself, and the most disturbing part, my doorbell rings nonstop in the middle of the night. On and on for weeks, until I started offering chocolate regularly. Since then, I've finally been able to get some rest. But now I'm asking, please, does anyone know how I can get rid of it for good? If anybody in the comments knows more about it, Ellie asked directly how she can possibly get rid of these things. So if you know, please let her know in the comments. Sometimes the places we visit aren't just empty spaces. They hold secrets that don't want to be uncovered, like in this true crime story from Panama, written by Sarah Lakasowitz. The mist hung low over Bukata that morning, soft and thick, like it was hiding something. Chris Kramers and Lisanne Frohn were too carefree to notice. They were young, excited, 2 Dutch students on a break from volunteering, setting off to hike the El Piestana Trail on April 1st, 2014. The path started out wide and welcoming, winding through the green hills above town. But locals knew the truth. The trail had a turning point. Past the Marauder, the lookout, the jungle thickened and the air changed. Some said the land beyond didn't want visitors. Chris and Lisanne were last seen around midday. They carried light packs packed with snacks, water, a camera, and 2 phones. They told their host family they wouldn't be long, but they never returned. When the girls missed an appointment the next day, their host family grew concerned. By April 3rd, full-scale searches began. Dogs, helicopters, locals, tourists. The forest was torn apart. Mud tracked, roots overturned. Every inch of the forest was searched, but the girls were gone. No footprints, no phone signal, no sign of struggle. It was like the jungle had erased them. Weeks passed, and worry turned to resignation. Then, on June 14th, everything changed. A Nayagbi woman from a nearby village found a blue backpack sitting neatly on the riverbank, miles from the trail. It was dry despite recent storms, as if someone had placed it there carefully. Inside were 2 phones, a digital camera, sunglasses, cash, and both girls' passports. Nothing was missing or damaged. When authorities powered on the phones, the timeline began to form. The first emergency call was made just hours after the hike began, April 1st, at 4:39 p.m. Over the next few days, there were 77 attempts to contact emergency services, but none connected. One phone, Lisanne's, shut off on April 5th. Chris's phone remained on longer until April 11th, but something didn't make sense. On April 6th, someone entered the wrong PIN multiple times. There were dozens of failed attempts. Whoever had the phone didn't know the code. Whoever had the phone wasn't Chris. Then there were photos. The camera revealed cheerful shots from the first day, smiling selfies, scenic views. But then 7 nights after they vanished, something changed. 90 flash photos were taken between 1 and 4 a.m. on April 8. Nearly all were in total darkness. The jungle floor, bits of broken branches, a candy wrapper tied to a stick, a torn piece of fabric, a crude symbol scratched into the dirt. One photo showed the back of Chris's head, her hair matted, a wound visible on her temple. Another showed something else. Under the leaves, faint but unmistakable, a shape, low to the ground, pale eyes, a sliver of a face, crouched and watching. Locals had warned travelers for years. The jungle, they said, had rules. Some places are sacred, like burial grounds or spirit lands, but foreigners don't always listen. The trail past El Pastina leads to one of those places. Some believe Chris and Lisanne had unknowingly crossed into land that wasn't meant to be seen. A guide later confessed he never hiked that section alone, not after he heard footsteps circling his camp one night. When he stepped out with the flashlight, there was no one there. Only silence and a single footprint in the mud beside his own. More remains were found in the months that followed, a boot with Lisanne's foot still inside, fragments of Chris's pelvis picked clean, unnaturally white. Her ribs were discovered 17 kilometers away. Some bones were still wrapped in tissue, others were bleached and scattered like they'd been left in the sun for years. The government ruled it an accident, lost hikers, dead from exposure or starvation, but the evidence refused to rest. Who tried unlocking the phone days after the last emergency call? Why did the backpack appear clean and untouched after weeks of jungle rain? Why did the photos feel staged? Locals say the jungle doesn't just kill, it takes. And it keeps. Visitors began leaving offerings at the trailhead, coins, candies, bits of red cloth tied to branches. Tour guides shortened the hike. Some stopped offering it altogether. In time, the whispers started to outgrow the facts. Some hikers claimed to hear young laughter deep in the woods, close, and then suddenly gone. One woman returned from the trail saying she felt like she'd been followed the whole time. When she developed her photos, there were 2 extra shots she hadn't taken. They were blurry and off-center. One looked like it had been taken from behind the woman. A man found a bracelet caught on a tree limb a few months after the story broke. He took it home. That night, he dreamed he was crawling through roots, deeper and deeper, while something clutched his legs. He left the bracelet at the trail the next morning, said he couldn't sleep with it in his house. And always, people came back to the photos, the 90 flash images, the makeshift markers, the flicker of a third figure in the shadows. The camera was found in working condition, its battery barely drained. The final photo showed nothing at all, just darkness and the edge of something round, smooth, almost human. The Nyagbe woman who found the backpack was later asked how she knew to look near the river. She paused and said, "I heard a voice calling from the trees. Just one word. Akwi. Here." People still hike the El Pastina Trail. Some make it to the ridge, snap their photos, and return in peace. But the ones who go beyond, the ones who wander where the forest grows thick and the silence gets too loud, they talk about strange things. Lights, whispers, the sound of snapping twigs when no one's behind them. Some say Chris and Lisanne never really left the jungle. And if you find yourself there, past the marauder, deep in the clouded dark, and your flashlight flickers, don't look too long into the trees, because something might be looking back. Have you ever taken a photo and found something in the background that wasn't there before? Did you find the same creepy figure lurking elsewhere near you? Tell us your story by sending us an email at SomethingScary@snarled.com. And don't forget to subscribe to Snarled.com on YouTube and follow us on Spotify so you don't miss a single episode. This week's podcast stories were edited by Sarah Lukasiewicz, narration by Blair Bathory, audio edited and mixed by Fitz Harris, additional audio editing by Calvin Linderman, produced by Anna Villalobos, executive produced by Gail Gilman, music by Sapphire Sindalo and Calvin Linderman. If you have a story you'd like to submit, send me an email at somethingscary@snarled.com. Don't forget to watch the video version of Something Scary over at youtube.com/snarled. And if you'd like to support the show and everything we do at Snarled, join our Patreon at patreon.com/snarled.